104 megs at a ridiculously slow speed. Okay.
Oh, there we go. There we go. So now that we've gotten everything worked out, it looks
Okay.
like it is recording appropriately because
There we go.
that has apparently been a challenge. I think we're good to go on this particular one.
Okay. It looks good on my end. And I have the notification live.
Oh,
If
on
that
YouTube.
was the actual. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
I just got that came
oh,
on the top of my screen.
oh. There we
So
go.
let
Well,
me cut
long as
some of my alerts off
heard.
so that it's quiet. There we go.
No, it's all good. It's all good. At least it's all panning out. Mine just let me know your stream quality upload has automatically been lowered, and I'm like, well, do what you got to do. Do what you got to do. But
Let's
nonetheless,
make it.
so I will say first and foremost, Makula, thank you for joining me. By the way, I've always wanted to get you on. I know this is something like I've always really wanted to do, and I haven't been the best. If I'm just being honest, right? Like consistency, I've really been terrible. And now that we're all in a sense like on this crazy self quarantine lockdown, right? Like, there's no better time
True,
now to do
true.
it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. Plus, you have so many responsibilities, your family, job. So yes, we're here, and I bet a lot more people are here too, as well, because we can't go out in the streets. Although people in Florida seem to be. I'm looking at my screen in Miami, but
Like
okay,
Simba, like
maybe.
I'm lifting up the big cat. Yeah, he's all over the place. And then I can't
He
like put
loves
him
keyboards.
outside because he wants to scratch the door, and then like the door to our room is closed because Victoria's taking a nap because she is under the weather. I'm like, you need to keep that cough
Hmm.
right inside. And you know, hold on. The best part is, and before we get
Okay.
started, I just have to say this. Look, the best part is my whole neighborhood I feel like has quarantined me, right? They're like, hey, you're our world traveler. You stay inside.
Oh, really? So they know you travel a lot.
I'm sure they say it half jokingly. It's actually pretty hilarious. Like
But yeah, for sure, for
I
sure.
can't blame them at all. But nonetheless, so just to give the introduction, right? Like welcome those conspicuous millennials, and the idea behind. I'm pretty sure I told you like the four mics indicate like different perspectives, and I love the fact that you and I were usually aligned, right? But every now and then there's like different perspective I learned from you. And so I'm glad we get to do a little bit of that now because I think now's the best time is again as we just move to digital platforms, people hopefully are trying to do a better job at making sure that they're keeping their minds a bit open, right? Like we can't have like Facebook is really known to do like from an algorithmic standpoint, it only shows you confirmation bias type material, right? Like things you're into,
Okay, okay.
that's what it when it continues what it continues to show you. And where the idea here is we try to have a conversation just based upon a few things that we pulled that we shared, as you know, through the notes. And then we just
Right,
have just
right.
like a normal conversation, like two dudes right now. As I got this nice little Indian pale beer in front of me, a night in Ponce, or night on Ponce, I should say, because I
Ah,
had to make sure I supported ATL.
sponsor. Sponsorship.
I know,
I
right?
have
How nice would that be?
I'm a
So I
little
guess like the
tequila.
first one we kind of get into, right? Like originally when we were planning this, we were talking about like Disney, right? And like how Disney was still
Right.
open. And it's like, okay, like we kind of get it, even though things been crazy, whatever. And then sure enough, like the day you and I were talking about doing this, Disney closed down, right? And we're just like, oh.
Within hours, within hours. I think we had a tweet from I forgot the guy's name. But yeah, within hours of us speaking. Like it was closed. I'm not sure if Florida closed also, but I know for sure
Yeah, no,
California.
they all
Okay.
have now at
They
this
all
point.
okay, okay.
Yeah. And so, like, a question I wanted to ask you this is not just towards Disney, even though that was originally the setup we had, but I really want to talk
Right.
about just paid time off, right? And supporting infected employees and whatnot and how that should look. And I don't know your thoughts in particular. I wanted to gather them and just kind of start off. Like, how do you feel that these companies should be handling employees, especially this forced work at home situation? I mean, what do you think is the right thing that these companies should really be doing?
Okay. So for sure they should be taking care of their employees. I mean, that's the front facing for your customers. That's who's gonna be there. That's who was there before and who's gonna be there for you afterwards. So at the beginning, there was a lot of lip service, like, "Oh, we're gonna close our stores for this amount of time. Great, thank you for shopping with us." And I think I told you how many emails I was getting from separate companies, just, I've never even shopped there, and I'm still getting emails saying, "Oh, we appreciate your business. We're cleaning our stores," but then no mention of how these employees are going to support themselves. So yeah, I feel like they should be compensated. I mean, it's you have to be able to continue to feed your family, your kids, your mortgage, gas in your car, and then yeah. So I agree. To answer your question, yes, I agree that there should be some type of package that's available while they're forced to take off work
Yeah,
and
look,
stores are closed.
I wholeheartedly agree with you on this one. I look at it from the standpoint of, first off, it's just a responsible thing to do, right? Like, originally, I can see it. They try to pave the way and say, like, okay, we try to stay open because we believe, like, we want to support the economy, right? We want to have, from a job standpoint, and people want to still get out, and that's all fine and dandy. That's great. But I think there's a certain point where the tides start to turn, and it clearly has here. And again, I understand from the beginning standpoint of, if an employee was sick, right, like they should simply
Right.
honor that. And honestly, I don't even think we should question it. Like, an employee doesn't feel comfortable for whatever reason, whether they're sick or they're not. I think we should honor that socially and allow them to stay at home. And for me personally, and of course, I'm waiting for it because it's interesting to see how many people claim, right, like they don't want to be socialist, X, Y, Z, whatever, right?
Oh yeah,
However,
that's a whole.
however, it is going to
Yes,
take
yes, I
a
see.
social type of approach here to really make this work. And so I think that not only does Disney owe it to their say, like, their stakeholders and this sort of things, sure, to try to maximize business, keep things open, but I think more so they really owe it to employees, because without their employees, there is no business. And I think that's really important to understand, even ahead of the customer, to be honest with you, because again, if there's no employees there to serve the customer, then chicken or eggs situation. In this particular case, it's not one of those. Employees first. And again, if they are sick, or like with a self quarantine situation,
Yeah.
I feel that, honestly, no. We should make sure that we continue to support people while they're off, because one, it's not a big loss for these companies. Let's face it. Like Disney, they're
Right.
not going to lose tons of money by the employees staying home. Now, of course, we can make the
No.
argument that customers not coming through, sure, they're going to lose some money there. But I got to look at the damage for two ways, right? Because a, if you don't support your employees, you may just lose them for life, right? Like, they may just
Right. True.
not respect the brand, and then some people may decide not to honor the brand as well, depending on how they handle it. And I really love that saying, like, your character isn't necessarily measured by what has happened to you, but how you respond to it. And I believe this is the exact same case of that. And so what I would
I
like to see
agree.
personally is that these companies say, okay, look, whether government bailouts or whatnot, or some tax relief happens to them, I think they still have to pass that to their employees. What I would hate to see, and certainly wouldn't want to support, is that they get, the millionaires, billionaires, like,
Well,
the major ones get taken care of, but then their, front entry employees do not. And so that's my initial concern.
well, yeah. Excuse me. Just look at our last tax break that the Trump administration provided. Did that trickle all the way back to the employees? That could be, I don't know, that could be argued. Um, I'm not sure if that's where you wanted to go with that, but and Disney took a while to close. I mean,
Yeah.
the governor kind of gave them a little bit of leeway, and some people question whether that leeway was because profits in front of people, or I can't really say what else it could have been actually, but it took a while for them to close. I think it's for the best, and especially now, on looking back, we know it was for the best, and they these companies have enough cushion at this point to definitely allow 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks for their employees. That's at the very least. At the
Yeah,
very
at the
least, I
very least, I
think
mean,
so.
and we'll get into this a little bit later, but even with the president talking about this thing could go out as far as July or August, I mean, I think there's a conversation that,
Oh, right,
these companies really have to be prepared to have, is how do we support our employees, right? And it's a dicey situation, because I understand, like, small businesses, they're not going to be able to truly support. Medium businesses,
wow,
they arguably may not be able to support. And again, I understand where some people may argue with me on this one in particular, but I just think these major corporations, they certainly have a bigger stance from a social responsibility that they have to take. And I don't think there's two ways about it, because I think, again, if people lose on the bottom line, like, they lose. Like, I think that's inevitable, right? It's like, to hurt others is essentially to hurt yourself. And so I just think it's one of those
true.
where nobody likes it, but guess what? You can't just pass this loss. This is a loss that everybody's going to have to take. And unfortunately, some of us are going to have to carry a heavier burden than others. But I think that's just what comes with the territory, right? Like if I'm a manager, at a particular place, like I have to take the brunt in a little bit more than some of the entry level employees. And so I know some people try to make, a different like financial argument, like, oh, it's not their fault. They shouldn't necessarily have to carry the brunt. And it's like, sure, in a perfect world, you're right. But guess what? It's not a perfect world. It's an imperfect system, right? You've been given the
True.
bigger
Very
keys, the
true.
bigger, in a sense, you can have a bigger blow and impact to the economy. Therefore, it does affect you a little bit more, and that's just reality. Again, I'm not debating the merits on if that's fair or not, but that is the way that it
Right.
goes down, right? Like if I'm in a village, and, I like to think of like maybe like how they had to do some things in older times. And
Oh,
if I'm the young
sure.
hunter, and there's a little bit of starving going on within my tribe, guess what? Tough shit. Like it does a little bit of the onus is on me. Like I'm the younger hunter with better vision, better physical, attributes that's going to allow me to catch the prey or whatever it may be. And the
Thank you.
onus is going to be on me, right? And it's like tough shit. It's either you make it through and you survive or you don't. And so I just don't want to hear anybody complain. And I find it so interesting. Like the people that are usually like
Okay.
not really in power, the ones that are complaining, and other ones in power, like, we'll do it if you ask us to do it. We may do it if you make us do it. We're not necessarily going to volunteer it, but and then you got people like in the mid and low level
True.
here having those battles for them. I find it very intriguing.
Well, yeah, because I think this whole, I know it may be a little bit off, but the virus definitely has shown us the true strengths and weaknesses of our current system. Just
Mm-hmm.
like you were saying, it's like of course we're capitalists. We're saying, we can pull ourselves by the bootstraps. We can make it. I've got all of this. It's mine. I made it. I don't really have to worry about you. You're
Yeah.
somewhere else. You're on this side of the world. You're not next door to me. But now you kind of do have to worry about that person next to you, because that person could be the person that you have to take care of. Or it's shown some of our strengths and some of our weaknesses so far.
Yeah. Well, look what's
And just, yeah.
good.
Then just as being people, just honestly, just being in people in general, like it's showing now, like people's true character and what they really do believe in. It's putting that to a test, not just lip service, but what really matters. And you get to see even from a corporate level, like who's really paying their employees, who's taking care of them,
Mhm.
and who's doing it just for the optics.
Oh,
So
100%, 100%. And then we even see this with like the younger generation, like and I have to be honest, right? Kind of call myself out here. Like, I had no problems or qualms of getting on a plane, right? I'm like, oh, okay. To me, I'm like, if the thing's at like 30%
oh,
capacity, like I'll hop on it. It sounds good to me, right? But
$95. Okay.
I know.
$95 to LA. I just looked it up earlier today. $95
It's
round
crazy.
trip
It's
to
crazy. It's
LA.
almost a steal.
But go ahead. Sorry.
And like, and to the
Puerto Rico
point,
as well.
I'm looking at it though, like, okay, but it's not about me, right? It's like, would I go visit my grandmother right now, especially after all the travel? No, right? Because it's not necessarily myself who's at the biggest risk. Some of the elderly
Right.
folks, people with respiratory issues, diabetes, heart issues. And so I think that like that's the toughest thing for people to get through their skulls, right? Like even watching like some things online and whatnot, I'll see where my generation, like the millennials, like to go out and still party and go to the bars, and people are like, oh,
Right.
Rona ain't
Excuse me.
stopping us, right? And they're partying, they're doing their thing, but it's like okay, but what they may fail to realize is that it's what happens when they go to the grocery store or other places that other public people go to that can
True.
cause an unintended consequence. And I'm a little disappointed in people that are within my generation, the millennials in particular, where we're so short-sighted that we haven't really seen that, right? Like we're so caught up in only our view and how things affect us that we don't realize how it's affecting everybody else. And I think that's a bit of the problem here. It shows a more of a systemic issue of where we can only see what affects us, and we're not seeing how this affects people, whether it's in a localized regional scale or a global scale, right? Because we can only see what we see. And when I had this conversation on Facebook the other day, kind
Sure.
of similar, like the way the administration handled this, which we'll get into, people are like, well, I don't see this and I don't see that. I'm like, yeah, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? Like, and no one really had
Right.
a good argument for that, but it's just something, a reoccurring theme that I kept noticing, and I'm like, wait a minute, like, what is it about us as human beings? Because like we're all guilty of it, right? The difference is, I would say we're more self-aware than the average person here in this particular case. But it's like, why is it that we consistently think that if we don't see it, something doesn't exist, or if we don't experience it, then no one else is experiencing it? It's just really interesting to me.
It's I think that's what's been, I guess there's no real, can't say a good thing or positive,
Hmm.
but hopefully it makes us realize that we're all in this together.
Agreed.
Like I said, I don't want to give it any type of what I'm trying to say, positivity, or but there's something to come out of this. It's like it all affects us. This virus, everything that's going on is infecting, or actually is, but everything's affecting affecting the entire world right now. To see that we're human, like we're all human, and from Italy, Germany, continents of Africa, Iran,
Hmm.
everywhere where people have their moms, their kids, their fathers, everyone trying to work, trying to make it. Hopefully, it makes us all stop and think. You know what? We really are in this together. We really do need to help each other instead of fighting over toilet paper.
Oh
It's
my!
like it's like we all need to maybe give someone else like a hand up. Help someone else out.
My
Um,
my favorite meme is it's like the old
Switch
Batman and
this.
Robins, and you got like Batman slapping Robin, and he's like, the toilet paper, and he's like, he's like, this is the coronavirus, not Chipotle, which I love Chipotle, but I get the reference. That fiber, it'll get you every time. But yeah, I mean, like it's just out of control, right? Like people are buying things way out of proportion to their needs. And I don't know about you, right? Like again, because self awareness here, I don't want to say because I experienced something one way
Well,
that that's
okay,
a particular
okay,
case. I have noticed even my local Publix up near the area that I live here in Brownston, Georgia, they're almost
sure.
fully stocked, with the exception of like meat is a little bit low, toilet paper is non-existent, and then the gallons of water are non-existent.
Okay, because I've kind of seen that like on some streamers. Because I'm in Noonan, let's say for Aldi's and Kroger and Walmart, like they've been pretty good. Like I said, some of the meats are gone, a low supply of maybe eggs,
Yeah.
um, beer. Other than that
Essentials.
though, it's been very like extremely civil. Everything's been yeah, been as you would expect, but nothing's been overboard. Like no fights, like completely empty shelves. And I think I shared with you the thing that happened to me at Aldi's, where I went to check out with some items. I had some wine, forgot my ID in the car. I was gonna have to pay with Apple Pay, but I was like, I'm gonna have to leave the wine at the counter. And the lady next to me actually purchased the wine for me. And like I told you, I was like, are you sure? She's like, yes. I was like, I'll get your groceries. She's like, no, we all need to be in this together. She's like, I've already stocked up. But it's just things like that that give me a little bit of hope in all of this. But the supply chain here has been good. Nothing outrageous. And I think it's gonna, I don't know. I don't want to speak to the future, but I think it's pretty much for right now stay that way.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I personally don't, foresee
I
any of
don't
this
know.
really being a
Yeah.
big issue. This is something interesting that just over history we've done this before, right? Like with the Spanish flu, we panicked this way. With the Great
Okay.
Depression, we panicked this way. We remember when there was like the crisis, people waiting at the gas stations, pumping, like people just go
70s,
crazy.
right.
And a little bit, I think, is within our DNA, like not to necessarily get people on out here, but just to understand the human psychology and sociology behind this is that, when you believe that something is an imminent threat, you can respond accordingly. And it's like, there's a couple in the grocery store, the Publix here, the other day where they're in line, they're buying a lot
Okay.
of groceries, like a lot, right? And like literally, I have like a small little cart worth because I just shop as necessary. And
Same.
the guy I
Okay.
was looking
Same
at, I was
here.
like, man, I was like, what? And I made a joke about it. I was like, you having a party or something? Because I think we're all about to come to your house. I mean, social distancing aside, I think we're all about to come to your crib. Is that cool? Right? And he kind of
It's
laughed
pretty
about it.
good.
He's like, honestly, man, I'm a little embarrassed. I'm like, embarrassed? And he's like,
What would he?
yeah,
Yeah.
so like, man, I got kids at home, me and the wife, we got to make sure we take care of them, this sort of thing. And I'm like, you know what? Like, fair point at that, but there's nothing to be embarrassed about. And I was like, honestly, look, kudos to you, my dude, because it's clear to you that there's a slight overreaction here. But you're also doing it because your hand is a bit forced, right? Because if everybody's going up buying all the supplies, then you kind of really don't have a choice but to go through a stock just a little bit. You know what I mean? As a just in case
But
measure.
you're but you're exhibiting a character that is always impressive about you anyway. But you're able to look at things from both sides. I mean, you didn't sit there and judge him and say, "What are you doing?" You know, like, why do you have all of a sudden you're keeping my kid from having food? You actually can see things from his perspective as well as your own, and that's something I think we all need to have. You've always been that way, which I think is just commendable. But I think we all, I know that's one of the, I guess the peace sign is the other, Vulcan. That's what we're supposed to be doing. But yeah, I think that's something that we all need to do during these times.
Oh,
But yeah, what was the other one? I don't know. Vulcan, peace sign, blow a kiss, but then that could be a little.
yeah,
little
right.
it's like, and Bob's like, I didn't. Okay. But yeah, I think that's really, really keen to do, just to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and kind of, I don't know whether everyone really lives this out, but kind of do unto others as you would want them to do to you. And it's pretty simple, but a lot of times people miss that. Just, hey, if I was in the same situation, how would I want to be
Oh
treated?
man,
Or
100%.
yeah,
And I
um,
think it's important to your point that that is the way that we kind of go about our daily lives, right? Like try to understand where everybody else is coming
yeah,
from, and put yourself in their perspective. I mean, look, it's just as they say when when the tide rises, all ships rise with it. And I think this is really important here because if we go with
climate
the
change.
flow, what's that?
Climate change. Sorry.
Oh God, oh God. My favorite is that tweet that's like,
Sorry.
the same people that told us this wouldn't be a big issue, like the coronavirus wouldn't be a big issue, or the same people that are telling us climate change
Yeah.
is not a big issue. And I'm like,
Yeah.
mm,
I wonder. I
mm.
wonder who that could be. I don't
Oh,
know.
oh, we will come back to that. Don't you worry. That'll
Oh,
have to be
okay.
like obviously a
Okay.
separate little podcast at some point, but we'll come back to that one because
Hmm.
I
Okay.
can't believe some of the things I heard here recently, but we'll have to talk about it. But to keep us on track here, so
Okay.
let me
Sorry.
ask you: do you feel that did the Trump administration really handle this well, in your opinion, from what you've seen and what you've heard?
From what I've heard and seen, the response is just too late. It just was basically dragging their feet, and it took a little too long. And I'm not sure. Like, I've had a limited scope, as far as all of that I know in it, but it's interesting that what I could see from the testing kits were, you can correct me, but as far as I know, the kits that we had were being almost like prototypes. When they were available from, say, Korea, other parts of the world,
Mm-hmm.
they had the previous version, which there was nothing wrong with it. Our version was going to maybe be a little bit better, but we could have went with the tried and true. Um, and but we didn't. And someone in leadership decided that we shouldn't worry about this virus, that it's a foreign virus, and there's nothing for us to worry about, and to go back to work, and you'll be fine. But
Yeah,
yes,
man. Look,
but
I mean, South
but
Korea's
it
doing
took a
over a
while.
thousand tests per day, right? Like, I'm like, so how is it that the smaller country, literally smaller than the size of Florida, can seem to get all of this done and we can't, right?
Well,
Good.
it's like you said though earlier. It's looking outside of your own borders, outside of your own fence. It's like South Korea learned from earlier viruses. Hey, this really affected us. This
Mm-hmm.
really, you know, decimated. Really affected our population. So I know I did too. It
I'm
affected our
home. You're
population.
home. We're cool.
Like, oh God.
I have
But
contacts, people.
I know, me too. I'm like, oh, I got to watch for 20 seconds. But they learned, like, say, hey, this happened. We're going to prepare for this the next time. Now, South Korea did have to go a little bit invasive to where you can correct me also, where they had to track people that they knew were positive based on their phone location. So South Korea were able to
Ooh.
backtrack, like, oh, they said here in the movie theater, they went to that bus, then to that restaurant. So let's kind of talk to those people and deal with those different areas. However, they were serious about it. And maybe you can let me know, but it kind of seemed like our administration thought that it couldn't happen here, not on
Oh,
our soil, that,
100%. Oh my
it's
gosh,
not here.
100%.
It's not in the US. You
Very
can correct
typical
me though.
view.
That's kind of the way I
Yep.
saw it being taken care of. Okay, I won't go there. And then someone else that's second in leadership who could not handle his own state's viral with any type of yeah. So I'll leave that there. We our leadership and who was put in charge didn't have the best track record to deal with this. And
Look,
for an administration that seems to hate science,
oh,
I wouldn't have expected anything less
I
out of this.
think you hit the crux
So
of it. The fact that our administration doesn't respect science, and then look, I gave a very harsh, critical, review of how this administration is really battled this from the get go, and I received some hell on Facebook for it, right? And look,
what?
sorry, I stand by.
Well,
I don't care what anybody says. Like, look at what they said. At one point, Trump just acted like this virus is going to go away. He literally said at one point, "It just go away." It's like it never happened. Go away. Right?
it's
It'll happen
done.
very quickly. It'll be over soon, and really underplayed it. And look, I one thing I'll somewhat concede is that I get
Sure.
why he tries to focus a bit on the economy in the beginning, this sort of thing, because you don't want to have panic. I get that. However,
Right. Right.
with that being said, the flip side of the coin here is because he wasn't very truthful and he truly, unfortunately, really underplayed it. And then, shit went down,
All hell.
put it that way. Then all hell
All
broke
hell.
loose, right? And then people were like, of course, this administration doesn't know what they're doing. We can't trust them because they said one thing and the opposite has clearly happened, right? And I think you lose credibility there. So I had some friends on Facebook like, Terrence, now is not the really time to really talk about this. I'm like, no, no, now is the time to talk. What are you talking about? Now is not the time to talk
Right.
about it.
Right.
Right? You saying we can't walk
Um.
and chew gum at the same time? No, put them on blast. Because the moment they realize they're not handling it and we're putting them on blast for it, we'll hold them accountable, maybe they'll start telling the truth. Because, newsflash, this administration does not tell the truth. And I know there are people out there who believe otherwise. And look, I don't know what kind of rock they're living under. And there's just no nice way for me to put it. Like, I'm not trying to be nice about it either. I'm like, look, like,
Well,
unglue yourself from your one source, get rid of your conspiracy theories, listen to what's going
sorry.
on, and critically think through it. Because critical thinking here in America is in critical condition. And that's
Oh,
concerning to me.
like that.
Yeah, it's concerning
Uh,
to me. So, no, this administration handled it poorly. Now, here in the past 24 hours, I have to admit, like Mike Pence, of all people, my God, has actually stepped up a bit and has been a little bit
okay.
soothing to the American people versus, our commander in chief, Trump, who,
Mm,
I'm sorry, he doesn't have the charisma. Like, dude needs to be selling on some sort of apprentice or celebrity situation. He does not need to be in front of serious order. So maybe he did right by putting Mike Pence in front of it. And Mike Pence has actually done a decent job in the past 24 hours. I give
okay.
him that. But even when I was watching on CNN, CNN was asking specific questions. And by the way, let me just state this and just
Sure.
out here. For people who say, "Oh, CNN is not a source, whatever," no, shut your mouth. Like, I'm just gonna come at you right now and say, no, shut your mouth about it. Like, there was specific questions asked. These were fair questions, and he had a moment to address them. And he dodged it,
Okay.
and he did not address it. I do not care the source. I don't want to hear the excuses. He was asked basic questions, couldn't answer them. That is a fail.
Right.
Full stop. So first, I just had to get that out there because I'm so tired of people saying CNN. I don't trust that source. Fake news. I'm like, no, go away. Like, Fox News, in my opinion, isn't all that well. But guess what? Like, I'm actually open minded enough to know that there are actual like hosts out there that do a really good job that do work at Fox.
Right.
Fox does have some really good news anchors. I can't just go say Fox is fake news and ignore them. Right? That's just silly thinking. And so when I hear people say the same about CNN, I'm like, oh, just go away with you. Like, let Corona come get you. I know that may sound mean, but whatever. Like, let Corona, let
But
Darwinism take its. It sounds so harsh. But at
Terrence,
this point, I'm just like,
evolution
I'm
doesn't
just
exist.
thinking. Like,
No,
I
I'm
just can't get
kidding.
behind
Sorry.
it. And so,
Okay.
with that, I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of, look, bottom line is this: they could have got ahead of it, and they didn't. They
Okay.
chose to underplay it. They chose to
Sure.
focus on the
Sure.
economy. Again, I understand that there's certain reasons for it, but those ill actions, unfortunately, has caused a part of this panic, and I think they have to take responsibility for it.
Exactly. I think it's a good way of showing what really matters. It's like there's no economy if there's no workers or people to buy your product. If there's no one alive to buy your product, no one well enough to buy your product, there's no economy. And so it's reassuring that you've seen Pence actually somewhat try to handle the situation. Um, just like I said, I'm not too much exposure I've had, but one person I talked to about the situation, and I was like, "Hey, I think the Trump administration kind of dragged their feet on this," and they're like, "Oh, Trump, yeah, he didn't want to cause, like I said, any type of, he didn't want it to make this like into a I don't want to say riot, but overreact. He didn't want the American people
Or
to
yeah.
panic. There we go. Thank you. That simple word. But he didn't want the American public to panic. So I'm like, oh, but so you call no reaction or no action calming? Okay, what about maybe having South Korea or China offer all these testing kits? Korea offered testing kits, and the person actually said, we don't know what will come in those kits. There might be some foreign materials in that kit.
Oh,
This is someone who I consider to be intelligent, and I was like, what did you just say? It's like almost as if he can do no wrong. Some people, that administration can do no wrong whatsoever. No matter what you put out, it's like, oh, well, they didn't want to do this or they didn't want this to happen. I'm like, where's truth anymore? Like, where does 2 plus 2 equal 4 anymore? Facts, logic? I don't
yeah,
know. I'm
where
going
is it? It
off, but
seems
yeah,
non-existent. And to your
sure,
point, it's like, the what ifs are always a dangerous game to me. Like we can what if all day. I don't think that needs to be our full response here. Now, I'm not saying that there doesn't need to be critical thinking involved in kind of predicting the future here.
sure.
But my thing is, if other countries are doing a test, I don't necessarily have issues with it, and they're being proactive enough to quarantine people. I mean, then what if my food, right? Like, it just can be a downhill. Oh, what if I go to the grocery store and the food I touch has it,
Oh,
right? Like, what if
and
the meat that I have touches it? Do I just not eat? Right? It's like, give me a break here. Like, really think through this. Like, the purpose of those kits, like, clearly they're building these kits with this virus in mind, right? And to a degree, whether
true.
we like it or not, we are going to have to put some trust into other entities, whether domestic or foreign, that they're going to do the right thing here. And I think the moment that we stop trusting one another and that we stop acting rationally is how we get to this point, if not a worse point. Gun sales are going up, and I'm like, oh, idiots, right?
I
Like,
didn't want to look at that. Yes.
yeah, and look, I'm not saying I don't understand. Of course I understand, but at the same time I'm asking the question, if you get to that point, what kind of America will we have? What kind of world will we have? Like it has gone beyond a very serious point to where things are going to get so nasty. The question is, would you even want to be around at that point, right? Like that should never be the answer. The fact that you believe you have to rely on that means there's a breakdown in society, and I get it. Some people want to prepare, sure, but that should never, ever, ever, ever be the case, right? Like that is literally last resort. But some people behave as if that is what it's gonna come down to, and that just can't be the thinking, right? Like long term. And then again, another good tweet I saw was like, the end of humanity
Okay.
won't come from like comments or even like not comments, but comments or
Uh,
like some sort of alien life force or something crazy like that, right? It'll
it's
be
going to
because
be
of
us.
humanity's own stupidity.
Right.
And I think that's
And what
really
are
just
these
speaks
people do?
volumes to that.
Sorry. True. And I wonder what, like, with the gun sales going up, what are these people doing in beforehand? Like saying like, oh, I need to maybe protect myself from looting or from, someone attacking me to get what I have. So
Hmm.
what have you done to try to distribute what you have or help that
Hmm.
neighbor or help that person who's trying to loot? Like, what have you done to kind of make sure you don't have to have to use that gun within society? Maybe we are hopefully going to pay more attention to us just as a whole, our communities, um, our country or our world. Not even to say our country, just to the world in general. Just to say, hey, I can take care of my fellow man. Like, it is a village. It does take a village.
It
These
does. I don't
villages.
care what anybody says. People act like
So
this self survival thing is gonna last. No, we're social creatures. Whether we like it or not, we're social. And to think for 1 second that you're gonna make it on your own, yeah, good luck with that, right? Like that's the type of ignorant. We can't help that type of ignorant.
no.
But anyway, so now
And
next question, just for
okay,
the sake
sure.
of time, right? And then we stay on a timeline here. Is okay. Do you feel that this could possibly turn into a recession? If you take that
I
sip.
almost spit right. Almost did a spit take. It was Archer. I was going to do an Archer. Um, Wait for it.
Yeah,
One more. One more.
people had to
You're
visually
not my
see it to get it.
supervisor, Pam. Okay. Um, Unfortunately, you called it early. Like I have to admit, you called it early at the very beginning of this. You said, you know what? I think this may cause a recession, and that was before any of this hit the fan. And unfortunately, that's what we're looking at right now with the Feds cutting rates to almost zero. Looking at the Japanese system of almost going into a negative
Hmm.
um, interest rate, where it almost taxes you to save, but allows for more borrowing. If I can speak English. I think we kind of are like, unfortunately, the small mom and pops are who are going to get hit first
Oh yeah, there's
in this.
no
And as you know, like my family, has a small business or is in the small business sector, and unfortunately, who's going to get hit first. But then that's going to be a ripple effect as people stop going out. Those are the restaurants, and then possibly not buy that new car. If you haven't bought that new car, then those workers, and then the market is already getting very, very skittish about everything that's going on. And like I said, keep me on timeline. But we were talking about this last speech that someone just had, and then dropped it even further, like 3,000
Oh
points.
yeah,
But
points on the Dow. Yeah, I mean
yes,
it's a major hit. It's like it's been the early 1900s. I have to look up the timeline here. I'll try to
right.
find it just to make sure that we're on point
Bear
here.
with
But I
me.
mean, this hasn't happened for so long. This is crazy. And look, I don't want to necessarily, blame the president for this one, right? Like, obviously, clearly, I'm no fan of Trump by any stretch of the imagination. But, some things are just out of his control. But there are some things that could be, right? And the reaction's one of them. And I mean, my favorite
Well,
is somebody
yeah.
asked me if the buck stops with him. Trump said, "Normally, yeah, but this has never been done before." And again, like
I take no
to Trump's
responsibility.
point, like it quite
Mm.
hasn't been done, especially in modern times, right? So I cannot necessarily hate on that, but back to the point of the recession situation. I think it's pretty evident, and the problem with recessions is we don't know that they occurred until we're already past midway through it, right?
Oh,
Like it
it's a good
takes
point.
time for us to realize, oh, a recession did in fact occur. And so I think with him saying, and I quote here, let me just read a little bit of this, and specifically this is on
Okay.
NPR.org in case anyone's interested. But, quote, he said that with several weeks of action, quote, we can turn the corner, end quote, on that one, on the pandemic. But he also cautioned it could be a while before the virus abates. It seems to me if we do a really good job, it could be July, August until the threat of the pandemic diminishes. So, to me, oof, July and August, I mean, that is so far away. That is so freaking far away.
That is a long, like I think I was gonna ask. I think we said that was a good question. Like, how long do we think the the situation will cause, damage to businesses, or how long will it be around? Will it from beginning to peak to being able to be managed?
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't. I mean, of course, obviously, I'm not a doctor or what have you, but I didn't think July or August. Like
Nope.
maybe peak, a few weeks, around the country. Then after everyone's well, you continue on. But August, July or August.
That is so
I mean,
far.
kids are, yeah,
The kids are out of school by then, right? Like they're
right.
midsummer.
So midsummer, and already, like, having kids out of school already, parents are having to like scramble for childcare. Um, and hopefully, because I know New York kind of grappled with that. I believe it's
Mhm.
was it the mayor or the governor? But as far as closing New York schools, maybe at first they didn't want to because that would mean some of the parents would have to stay home, which were first responders. And but July or August, that's that.
The
How long
cat,
has he been there?
he
I
cannot help himself.
okay, that was awesome. Stray kitties.
But then, like
Um,
to your point though, continue.
oh no, just a straight kitties. But yeah, it's hopefully it doesn't affect us for too much longer, because I don't want, and of course, don't want any kids to be sick or anyone to be ill. Also, don't want them to fall too far behind, on their work or what have you. Um, if it carries on like to that point, We have almost not no choice, but almost inevitably it's going to be a recession just because people won't be able to have that discretionary income to really spend like they want to. But so far, I think, me in automotive sector, that's kind of
Oh yeah.
where I like to be. So far, car sales have been good. Dealerships are okay. Volkswagen factory, I think it closed, supposed to close Monday just for one day, back up to production. Here in Noonan, Hitachi, a friend who works there, and they didn't close at all. Yamaha, however, did. So it's patchwork right now. It's a little bit of patchwork, some of the responses, but to say July or August, you know, if there's not no new home construction, no one really needs those Hitachi track, bulldozers or what have you, and no one's going to be buying the new cars or some of the larger goods that the
Yeah.
GDP depends on.
I think that was part of this current administration strategy of moving what the interest rate to zero, right, so that people would purchase home. I mean, now honestly would be arguably, I could say, the best time to
Yeah.
purchase a new home here with those type of rates. And look, I mean, I think bottom line here is I think they're doing what they can from that perspective, right? I think that was a decent call. I'm not a one that believes
Oh,
like the feds are out of bullets per se of pulling the trigger on
okay.
this one. And then back to the school situation. Look, I think it's a very big problem. If mom and dad barely could afford health care, or not, sorry, not health care, but like
True.
any sort of child care before, which that is
Right.
a whole other situation, by the way, like part of this. But keeping it on childcare right now, school
Sure.
kind of was that childcare for them. And now, if you're
Right.
home, this could work well if the parents are working from home. That's one thing. But if that's not the case, and this is very problematic, especially if you have professionals in the field that work in the medical industry and they need to be available to do the job, they
Right.
have nobody. And
Right.
I mean, even now, it's like daycares are closed, right? So if I didn't have my mother in law, right, and then the flexibility of my job at Samsung, if those things did not exist, we could be in trouble, right? But thankfully, like I have a really good employer. Thankfully, Victoria's family lives really close. And so we're able to get through this. It's not a problem. But look, just because I can, again, a point we made earlier, doesn't mean that everyone can. I think we need to be sensitive to those issues. And look, having kids at home for
Right.
a long time not only induces cabin fever, true, but also to your point, like we don't want them to get behind in their education, and we got to figure out things moving forward. But like another question that this really leads into, and it's a great segue, is do we think that this particular situation is going to change, and define a new normal? And to kind of start it off,
Okay.
and I'll turn to you. Look, I think the answer is yes to this one. I think once we go through something like this, it's going to be very hard to go back to the old normal. I think we need to reconsider everything. Education. To me, it can be done online, and maybe me being a remote employee, right, for over 6 years, I've learned and I know how to work like on an airplane, in a hotel,
Oh
in
yes. Oh
in my
yes.
house, in a Starbucks or a localized coffee shop. And I've done it for several years. So not only do I have the discipline, but I know like the means, the behaviors, everything it takes to make it happen. And a lot of companies aren't really designed for that. And there's like a company we both worked with in the past, we won't name them. Like recently when I
Yes.
visited them, without giving too much context, like they were zero prepared to work from home. Their work from home policy was stuck back in like
Okay.
the early 2000s, right? Like it's atrocious. And seeing that companies like that should be, a little bit into the technology industry, they should be
Right.
a bit more prepared. They were not prepared. And I think this really exposes a little bit of a deficit in the old school thinking that we had here in America for too long. And so before I turn it over to you, I think this is going to create a new normal. I think we are going to have to get better about doing things remotely. I think this is going to change the way that we interact. And I think it's going to happen and be this way, for the rest, at least for our generation.
Uh, I agree. And so I guess not to go off maybe for another podcast, but with this being a new normal for how we view federal government,
Hmm.
maybe I'll maybe not touch on too much of that right now, but just how we view the federal government and their responsibility in our lives and what we expect from them
Hmm.
and vice versa. Um, so new normal, telecommunications, because we know T-Mobile like amped up, all the cell phone companies and
Yep.
telecommunication companies amped up. Hey, like Wi-Fi, let's take off those data caps, things that other countries may not even have as far as data caps and so forth. But also, let's kind of work harder on getting underserved areas more like Wi-Fi coverage. I
Oh, for
mean, a lot
sure.
of,
Good point.
yeah, rural areas. But what's so funny is like you're saying, okay, rural areas, but just what about people who can't afford to have those upper tier
Mm.
um, plans for their cable or for Wi-Fi that is insanely expensive anyway? Should Okay, I'm just going on a tangent. I was like,
Go for it.
should
That's what this. Look, this is why I
okay,
do this podcast. I like it to take us away.
but like information is a right. I mean, we've been trying to tout that forever. That connectivity, broadband, Wi-Fi is a human right. Information, being able to tap into information is a human right. Being able to learn um, away remotely should be able to be accessed from all of your citizens. I mean, why should we have to pay for information to move us ahead? So hopefully this will be a new norm that maybe everyone can get together and say, we need to take care of those people in rural areas or underserved communities. And we can, maybe on some days of school, maybe three, I don't know
Mm.
how it will work out, but some days from school, the kids can be home, do classes online. Then they can come together for social settings, but then more online. Um, Hopefully it will be. Just kind of how we view the world and technology. I remember, I'm going to throw it back, our old Nokia. I was looking through some of their stuff today, like
Hmm.
connecting people. Like, that was just kind of interesting from this point. It's like, I know Apple's doing that, and a few others just say, hey, we want to make sure people have the access to the information that they need. I mean, just imagine if this whole situation was going on and you didn't have access to the news or to chat rooms. And that's actually a reality for some people in America. And not to sound, I'm not sure, but maybe it gives us a glimpse that maybe in some areas we're not number one. Maybe there's some areas that we do need to grow,
Oh, we're definitely
grow
not.
on.
Like anybody who
You know,
says that we are in
you
all
know,
areas, I'm like, oh, you need to step out of North America for a
yeah,
second and get
yeah.
it.
It's
Yeah, no, we're definitely
and
not.
so hopefully this will be a new norm. Just how we look at ourselves, the world, maybe take a glimpse at how other worlds tackle healthcare.
Hmm.
Just some of the chat rooms I've been in that are international, they literally are like, you do that in America? You actually have to pay for insurance, and then the insurance doesn't pay for everything else. You actually have to pay more to the same insurance company that you're paying a premium to. But yeah, so hopefully this will be a new norm to where we can be more connected, and that maybe sounds crazy, but a little bit of social responsibility for the government, where the government actually can provide for their citizens. Some people
Yeah,
may
I
call
think
it
that's I
socialism.
think that's inevitable. I
Uh,
mean, I
you
would make the
know,
argument right now
yeah.
that if the government does any bailout, if any corporation gives them money, that is a social infrastructure. Like point blank,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yes. Yes.
so it's cool now. It's cool now, my fellow Republicans, right? It's cool that the government
Right.
gives some money to keep businesses alive, to keep the economy going. It's cool now.
It's great.
Irony,
Like
right? It's
Ronald
cool when
Reagan's
it
like,
serves you.
Ronald
So,
Reagan's like, hey, government is the enemy. Yes, we've been deconstructing the government for a long time, and now we actually need it. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, why is the response so slow? Oh, why don't we have these kits? Why don't we have this?
hmm.
It's because you taking away you dismantled this federal government that was put in place for a reason. Not to say it's perfect, but hopefully we will kind of realize what we need as human beings, not
Oh
white,
yeah.
black, Asian, whatever race, nationality, sexuality. We're just humans, and take care of ourselves, the environment around us. We're all in this together on this planet. What one person does affect the person next to you. And that's one thing I really learned from tangent. One thing I learned from the military, or just family in general, is just that the person next to you is your brother or your sister.
Mm.
You have to take care of them, no matter where they came from, what they're doing, what type of person they are. You are responsible for them. So
No, we definitely got to dive
sorry.
deeper in that one. That was good. To your
Okay,
point, right?
continue.
Like it is a little bit off on a tangent,
I'll
but
go off.
I think
Yeah,
I think these are
watch
important
me.
though, right? Like it gives not only
Okay.
material to speak to, but That just shows you
Okay.
everything's interconnected, right? Like to
True.
behave as if one thing is completely separate from another thing is not necessarily always
Right.
true, right? And to critically think through that and think, okay, wait a minute, can this be an unintended consequence? Are there other things involved here? The answer is absolutely it could
Okay.
be. And I think we need to venture to that. And so to kind of
Sorry.
close out here, I'll ask these questions simultaneously because I know we're approaching an hour and
Okay.
I do try to keep it like right at
What?
that time.
It has
Oh
not
yeah.
been an
Oh
hour.
yeah. Yeah, we've
What?
been live here now, just so
Wow.
you know, for exactly 50
Okay.
minutes and 6 seconds, as I said it. So
Okay.
the next
I've
question I would
seen that
have
in
for
some
you.
of your. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Victoria.
it's Victoria. Yeah, she's going to
Hi,
press check those
Victoria.
shirts real quick. Makua says hello, by the way. All right,
Sorry. I
so the
continue.
last question again, I'm going to go ahead and group
Okay.
these two together because
Sure.
A, the
Okay.
interest of time, and B, they
Sure.
can work simultaneously. Okay, so
Okay.
has this changed any of your behaviors? And also, do you feel that this entire situation has been overblown in some perspective?
Behaviors. I've kind of listened. Like I'm a homebody anyway, but I've kind of, as far as still the grocery shopping, that maybe stay home. I'm always home anyway, so do everything from
No, not
home.
really, right?
No, not really. But to say, even if I weren't, like, I would try to limit my exposure or what I do outside, and not so much, like I said, just for my own sake, but
Hmm.
like I said, people who are elderly or have immune systems that aren't up to par, I would kind of want to make sure that, you know, say that if I did have the COVID-19, that I wouldn't spread it to them and unknowingly, like, because I can show zero symptoms and still have it and spread it to someone who it may put them in the hospital or they, or they die. Um, so I think it does take a little responsibility as far as gatherings. I know it went from 50 to 10. So it's kind of hard when your government doesn't give you precise guidance on what to do. When it changes by hour, what's expected or not expected. So, so answer your question, no. Has it changed what I do when I do it? At this point, I don't think it has been. If anything, the government has kind of underplayed things a bit. Overblown only in the sense of maybe not as like hoarding
Hmm.
and taking supplies that other people need. On that part, I think it is overblown. Just having supplies, hoarding, like the guy I think we saw that was in Tennessee, I believe, that was hoarding supplies
Oh,
out of stores and trying to resell
oh
them
yeah.
for a high profit. So on that level, just making sure other people are taken care of as well. Maybe just not hoard everything at one time and there's leave nothing for anyone else.
Yeah, look, I agree with you here.
So
For me, it's a combination of A has my personal, because I try to break it up between personal and professional, and personally,
okay,
it's changed a little bit from the perspective of like I'm not eating out like maybe as much as I would prior, right? Because my travel's a bit down, so I'm a little bit more about cooking, preparing some meals at home. Definitely eating a lot more
okay,
leftovers. I could say professionally though, it's taken a big effect. I mean, I've canceled my last two flights. I won't be traveling for quite some time. I've always worked remotely, true, but now we're having to do it in different ways that we never done before, right? Like
okay,
one thing to work with the team remotely, but now I'm having to work with stakeholders and other individuals that I never had on a different scale, right? Especially seeing
okay,
that the CDC now has stated that they do not want any more than groups of 50 at any given time, which completely changes even the way that I do business.
okay,
I'm not flying, I'm not traveling from that situation. From a grocery store standpoint, right? Like doing quick little runs here and there, trying to get little things versus some people hoarding, getting bigger things. Usually I just wait for my fuel to get to really about a fourth of a tank. Where now I'm like, if I'm at a gas station, maybe I'll just fill up just in case. I
that's
don't
smart.
think anything's gonna happen, but I'm there,
Okay,
so I'll do
but no,
that. So that's changed that
okay,
behavior a bit. I think the biggest thing for me now is online has become a priority. I think that's the biggest thing that.
okay,
So, a lot of us ordered on Amazon. A lot of us done other things before. Now I look at from a food situation, delivery, gonna eat at home, not so much
um,
outdoors. Or when I say outdoors, I mean specifically like
Right.
Yeah, not
Barbecue.
like physically outdoors, like
Barbecue grill.
um,
But no, go ahead.
and even grabbing a quick drink, right? I'm like, well, I guess maybe I need to go ahead and again grab some more stuff at home. So I can see where this definitely hurts a little bit, the local business. And I have tried to do some
Oh, wow.
support,
Yeah.
right? Like there's a mom and pop type of pet store, and so I went and got Moo Moo the dog. Nieces went and got him,
Anyway,
a couple little treats. I didn't necessarily have to. That was a little bit more of a luxury, but I just
okay.
want to go and check and see how they were doing. And pick up a couple items, right, and just see how they're doing. And so I have a little bit of concern there. So from that standpoint, absolutely. But I think the biggest thing is that again, even with like, oh, here's another like quick little one is like Facebook canceled their F8. I know it's very high pitch sound there, Victoria. Depressed. So if you hear some banging, y'all, it's cool. Nobody's
Yeah,
done some intrusion in my house and hit me with some sort of metal club bat. Safe
that
here.
smells like
Um,
my eardrum splits.
I know. That did not
I was
affect.
like, I was like, Terrence, should I ignore that one? I don't know how to. No, okay.
We're definitely good. We're still safe. And so, I just there's so much that has changed from that standpoint. Now, again, South by Southwest is closed. Google stopped
Oh,
their
yes.
IO, which was supposed to occur in May. Normally in June, Apple does their WWDC, which I
Yes.
enjoy watching. They didn't cancel it. What I thought was interesting is they made it 100% online, which is the first time ever. And I look at that and I'm like, see, there we
Nimble.
go, a company that really thought ahead there. Ugh,
Nimble.
Facebook, Google, where are you? You should have done an online platform, whatever. And granted, Apple definitely had one more month than let's say Google to do so. But again, I mean, Google's Google.
But,
Maybe they're focusing a little bit on this website that allegedly Trump said it's going to go nationwide. But again, I guess it's another point
mm,
for the next podcast. But
oh,
yeah,
yes, because it
yeah,
kind
we're
of
gonna
is
we're gonna have to
supposed to
get into that one a
track
little bit because
track you.
honestly,
Mm.
that was a poo emoji show, right, to say the least. And so bottom line there is like it's definitely changed it that way.
Sure.
You can see a lot of tech industry doing a lot of things remotely through some sort of online platform. And look, when
My
I'm going to use
doctor.
Apple again as a example here, as they do their worldwide developers conference, when you think about these sessions that are held with developers, look, they're going to create an online platform and do learning this way. And honestly, it can be done, right? We do colleges this way. We've
Mhm.
been doing it for some time.
Oh, right.
We known that the shift was going to happen inevitably. I think this really accelerates that. So I'm really curious to see people's response to it. And I think now,
Oh,
like,
okay.
once you save on travel and that sort of thing, because let's face it, a lot of these industries have also
Okay.
taken advantage of people traveling in for WWDC and Google I/O because normally I can go get a place, let's say San Jose, right?
Okay.
I could normally go to San Jose, California, get a good hotel for around $200 a night, maybe 250 max. And when I go during Google I/O or anything else, I mean it's $400 to $500, almost like how Vegas does you with CES. And now some
Oh,
companies may say, wait a minute, if this really goes well, we don't want to return to the normal platform. I mean, I get it. Like, I do physically like to be in a place and near people and kind of experience some of these things. But some people, and this could be the majority, say, you know what? No, like these companies, unfortunately, have skyrocketed these prices. We feel now we can participate and we have a broader range and pricing is a little bit low. So this may inadvertently have a lasting effect on the entire industry. Who's to know?
yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, at one point, people laughed that you can buy insurance online. What is this? You don't go to the office, and talk with an agent.
Mm-hmm.
So they may, and anything that saves a corporation money, they're going to take advantage of it. If it saves if it affects the bottom line and it goes over well, they will take advantage of it for sure. So can't wait to see what happens there. Um,
Gonna be interesting. Well,
but you
go ahead.
never
You
know.
make
You
the
never know. I
last
was just
point.
gonna say you never know. You
You
never
do never
know.
know.
So
True. So with that, look, we're approaching almost 1 hour here. We're literally at 58 minutes and 48 seconds as I say it. None of that, but the heat press is going, which Victoria did ask. She was just like, "Oh, it's gonna do candy shop." I'm like, just come do it anyway, right? And I know I'm not
do
gonna be
you
able to edit out
are
those.
you making her in a sweatshop?
No sweatshop. No, Victoria's not running a sweatshop, y'all. It's cool. It's cool.
Okay, just say, just say.
She's doing her thing over here. She's doing her thing.
Okay,
But with that, look, I appreciate you joining us.
sure.
I know, again, with Those Conspicuous Millennials is a podcast I've been trying to do for quite some time. I've been really erratic. Something I want to continue doing forward. I hope you enjoyed being on for a bit. Got a nice little warm up.
Uh,
This will be a good warm up. I think the
Thank
better
you. Thank you.
platform. I just don't really have like any strong presence on YouTube or anything of that nature. But people certainly do get fired up on Facebook. The good news is you don't have to deal with them because you're not on it. Smart for you. But in the future, I would certainly love to do it there because it's
Oh, it's like a
interesting. You
gang
get a
sign.
different type of engagement when
Okay.
questions come in. I can actually see people type things out, and of course, if people
Oh,
do something
okay.
bogus, like I just don't read it because I don't believe giving anybody any sort of FaceTime that puts out stupid shenanigans. But
Yeah,
if they
just
put out
trolls.
something, even if it opposes the ideas and views that I may have or you may have, I like to acknowledge it and oftentimes read it. So it's actually kind of a cool
Okay.
form.
Okay. Yeah, because I
Did you hear him sniffing
Kitty.
the mic?
Yes.
By the way, that was
Yes.
the cat. For people that may listen to this later, he was literally
Oh,
sniffing the microphone. Like, what is this?
that is awesome.
A tantrum.
But yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Like I said, I know you've been trying to get me on forever, and so I'm glad, extremely glad that spend this time with you and kind of talk through some things. I'm looking forward to our next episode. So this has been great,
Yeah,
and
it's
maybe
a fun
it is
platform,
fun.
right? It's a
The
fun
time. Now
situation
I've
for
heard like
sure.
your other guests, like I know I've heard them say like, oh, what time has gone to so ever. I was like, how do you not know what time it? Not in a derogatory way, but how do you not know what time it is? But for you to say like it's been that hour went by so fast. Oh, poor kitty,
I know.
or poor Terrence. So it's been great. It's been great. So, like you said, just being able to have a voice, and I think that's important. I did wake up today, just with everything going on. It's just like you want to have an outlet for your voice and to be heard. So,
I appreciate
I
you.
appreciate you giving me that
Wise
opportunity.
individual, so I'm glad to have you on. All right, so just hang tight 1 second for me, Makua. But anyways, this
Sure.
goes ahead. We're going to end this right now. Another episode of Those Conspicuous Millennials. My name is Terrence Blunt. Makua, thank you for joining us. Shout
Thank
out,
you
say
for having
bye.
me.
There we go. And we'll talk to you
Bye,
guys
everyone.
later.